Welcome to this Roll for Crit digital review. Today, we're taking a look at Nintendo's Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. This is a collection of games, 51 to be precise, of classic games such as chess, checkers, and many more.
The game is available exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. When you start playing, you will have access to the full lineup of 51 games, plus a 50-second game, which is just you playing a piano. It's a little bonus in there for you. And they come from all over the world, all different time periods. There are some classic ones that everybody knows, such as chess and checkers. There are also some reskins, perhaps, some public domain versions of other games, such as Last Card, which is very similar to Uno. And every game is very free form. You can go into it, you can play against the AI, you can play against someone in person, or you can go online and play. There isn't much in the way of progression, but you do have different levels of AI that you can play against, and you'll be rewarded with different medals, showing off that you managed to beat them on those different difficulties. For a couple games, you can unlock different skins, different types of playing cards, some Nintendo Mario themed cards, for instance. And then there are the game experts that walk around and they will walk you through a selection of games. For instance, one of them loves strategy games, or one of them loves solitaire games. And that's just kind of a way to help you digest, I think, the large list of games available. And it's sort of a fun way to pick and choose some if you're overwhelmed and not sure what to go to first. But really, it is very simple. It's just a collection of games. It'll teach you how to play them. It'll let you play them. Again, online, solo, against the AI. Options may differ depending on the games. Some of them won't allow you to play with certain numbers of people. We can get into that later. And there are also a few things that aren't necessarily board or card games, such as bowling, or there's a tank battle game, or baseball. A few kind of wild cards thrown into the mix. We've played a bunch of this game. We've played it separately and together through online play. We even streamed some of it a few weeks back. What have been your impressions of Clubhouse Games, Will?
Overall, it's a fine collection. I mean, it's just nice to have all these games at your fingertip, especially on a mobile device like this. And I like also there's the profile customization. It's a small thing, but it's nice to be like, okay, this is my favorite food and ideas. And you can actually look up like people who had the same food as me and stuff and see what they like. You can actually list your favorite games and look at your friend games. For example, I know I'm on there with Hanafuda. I like that a lot, as well as Blackjack and some other card games. I can see what Jonathan likes. So you can actually use them as a guide too. So you can be like, all right, those are the ones I like. I'm going to practice at those games, so I'll get better at beating them.
It's like a little mini social network within Clubhouse Games.
Though it's not the greatest with the online stuff because this is Nintendo after all. They're not they need to work out how to do online gaming. To say the least.
It's certainly not their strong suit. Once in a while they do it pretty well. A lot of times, even then, there are some issues. I think the biggest thing for this game is, like I said, for just the two of us, it worked great, in my opinion, for the most part, in terms of our options. When you get to 3 or 4 players, there are many games that are, for some reason, off limits. For instance, Yacht Dice, which is their version of Yahtzee. For some reason, you're restricted to 2 players with that game. There's no reason you couldn't play that with 3 or 4 people. I think bowling is another one that's the same way, at least in local play. There's some differences, again, between local play and online. And very few of them make much sense outside of, obviously you can't play solitaire with other people. So I understand that, for instance. But, and then I would say it goes even further to a lot of games. One of my biggest issues is the lack of options available for them. Some of them will have, you can turn this rule on and off, which is nice. But rarely do they go as in-depth as I would like them to. Mm-hmm. I wish, because for some of these classic games, there are so many variants that exist, so many different house rules over the years, and I should be able to just play backgammon or whatever it is however I want, because this is a simple game that's been around for so long. This should be the best version ever, if I'm paying to play it here.
Yeah, there are some confusing decisions they made on like what rules to allow you to change or not to change, as well as, of course, as you said, player count with local versus online. Another small thing that probably isn't too much of a big detail for some people who are new to this, but Clubhouse Games was on the DS back in the day. We were big fans of that, and some of the games did not migrate over to this new one, which was a shame because they were, I think, pretty fun and better than some of the other games that made it onto this version.
Yeah, I think even if you aren't familiar with that game, you come into this and it has some things like War and Memory, which are not really good games. And I don't mind them being in there. Like, it's fine, it's funny. You can play Connect Four, Dots and Boxes. It's stupid, but it's like, I get it. You have a big selection and they're classics and you're representing them. But then you leave out things like, for me, the big ones, Gin Rummy and Hearts not being included. The DS one had some other oddball ones, like Hangman was an option.
There was a cool flicking game with like territory control. And it's just so weird that some of these games are like, I guess there are definitely a widespread of difficulty levels, and some of them are just, it's very hard to call them a game. I guess say.
Yeah. Some of them are solved games. So once you get into it, if you figure out kind of the trick, you're never going to lose, or it'll always be a draw.
I also want to point out, as someone who, because getting ready for this review, I'm like, I'm going to try to get mastery, which means beating all difficulty levels of AI for a lot of these games. I got a good chunk of them that way, but there's definitely, like, it's nice to be able to play against AIs, don't get me wrong. But removing the sitting with people or even playing online with people and chatting can make some of these games lose what little attractiveness they have. Like, not even that's because they're not super fun per se, but it's just like nothing's going. Okay, I play a card. I wait. Like, they're not talking or anything. Like, I think that it's just something you're gonna have to get used to if you're going to be more of a solo player versus playing with other people.
Yeah, I think you want that voice chat if you're playing online. If playing against the AI, and sometimes it's almost a little bit feels like it plays itself when they'll highlight exactly what you can put down, so it erases even more of the thought from it. Another huge omission for me is poker and blackjack. You can only play them to a set number of rounds. There's no option to just keep going, which I can understand in online play with strangers because people might disconnect. But if I'm just playing with my friends, I should be able to say, no, we're playing with 9,000 chips each and it goes as long as we want. I should have that option. Otherwise, there's 100 other places I can go play poker. You know what I mean? But I will say, I think some of the games do work really well. There are a lot of them. So while there are a bunch that I have issues with, there are still a lot that I think are almost perfect. It is a great time killer, and like you said, being on a mobile device, the Switch, I like the idea of, I have a good solid version of Solitaire, Spider Solitaire, Solo Mahjong on here. I enjoy playing those, filling time, killing time wherever I have it. And the presentation is very clean and it's kind of minimalist, but I think it is appropriate for the games. It's got this cute little toy figure thing going on. And it does, I think, teach you the games pretty well, considering there aren't really very in-depth manuals included. But I guess because most of the games are so simple, I found that it walked you through them in a way that it was easy to pick up those things as I played.
That was nice that you can easily look up some questions you had in there. They have quickly what hands do you need for certain games? And of course, each time you collect a game, the two little toy figures will give a quick explanation what's going on. And of course, for some of the games, they could be like, this is the Western friendly version, so we'll have English symbols on there to help you understand what's going on. Or you can bring it to the original art style if you already know how the game plays. It's time to check out the crits and misses for Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics.
Starting with crits. As the title suggests, there are 51 games included, and even if some of them are duds, you're bound to find at least a few that you really enjoy playing. The presentation is clean and polished and makes even some of the more obscure, complicated games easily accessible to new players.
By either highlighting what cards you can play or allowing you to take back a move, this allows you to learn the game at your own pace.
The Nintendo Switch is the perfect platform for a collection like this one. It looks good on a big TV screen, but you can also take it on the go for solo or multiplayer action.
Misses. There is a wide selection of games, but some of the choices were odd, to say the least. We believe some of these less enjoyable games could have been replaced with games from its predecessor, which for some reason were cut. It's got some great customization, but sometimes it leaves out some more obvious ones. Whether it be player counts or game rounds for local or online play, to even some house rules that are pretty common when you see this game in physical table space.
For games that are so widely available in real life and even other digital platforms, this one really should have brought more to the table to make it the best collection it could be.
While I do find they made some weird choices, being at the customization and also some of the games they play, overall, I think for its price, getting those 51 games is a pretty good deal. 52 if you count the piano. And it was pretty fun to play all these classic games, and it's a nice thing to have. So if you have friends come over, you can be like, yeah, you want to try backgammon? And everyone's like, what? And you're like, yeah, this is how you play it. I actually haven't played it until this, really.
Yeah, I leave the party when they suggest backgammon. I disagree with you a little bit. So the price of this game is $40, which is okay, and it's better than a full $60 title. But I think for me, that actually is the main thing where if this were a $20 game, I would feel good wholeheartedly recommending it. For $40 for games that, again, you can go online and play a lot of these just for free in your browser. I know the experience maybe won't be quite as good for some of them, but I feel like I wish it would bring a little something extra for a lot of these games. And especially, again, I think I got more down on it the more I played it, remembering that original DS game, which I feel like had more of those options and had better multiplayer, allowed for more players. And there are some things that to me are just no-brainers. Like, it's not that once you've programmed a deck of playing cards, why shouldn't every playing card game that's popular that exists be in there? There's no reason to not include Gin Rummy. Like I don't believe that it's hard for them to add that in. I think it's just laziness. And so while I did enjoy the game, I don't regret buying it, and I've had fun playing it. I think unless you're really bored and you really want a way to easily play with someone who has the Switch, wait for a sale, in my opinion.
That may be, but first of all, I don't think Nintendo games tend to go on sale that often.
They do sometimes on the eShop, but probably not 50% off. You might if you wait a few months get it for like $30.
And I didn't go back to play the original Clubhouse games. I don't even know where my copy is. But I do have very fond memories of that, and there were some games I remember from that I really wish were on here. That you're right to say that I think they made some odd choice of be like, why didn't you just bring all those over and just add more to it instead of changing the selection up?
Yeah, I mean, in that game, you could, with only one copy, if everyone had a DS, you could play most of the games that allowed it for up to 8 players.
That is true, and that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, no game in this one lets you go up to more than 4. A lot of them not more than 2. And there is, however, a demo version. They do carry one tradition over from that game. You can download a free version of the game from the eShop, and if someone else has the full game, or maybe even if 2 players have the free version, there's certain games you can play together to like demo it without having to buy the full experience. So that's cool, and I like to see them do that. And what's frustrating about it is that this could be a completely awesome A+ game for me if they would just add a few games and some few rules options that would not be hard to add. Like, that's what really annoys me about it, is it's not like, oh man, like this game could have been better, but they'd have to make a whole sequel or something. They could easily patch these things in and raise it for me like a full letter grade or 2. And I just don't know if they're going to do it. So
I don't think that's likely. I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. But anyway, the game is out now. And despite a lot of negativity, I don't think it's terrible. Just it could have been improved in a lot of places. And it is interesting experiencing some of these games that are classics that, some of them for the first time I play and feel like, oh, these are really fun. And some of them I think, oh, I don't want to play this. Sorry is not a good game, or Ludo, as they call it. But it is an interesting, sometimes a cool history lesson. And it's still the best way to play Hanafuda right now, if nothing else.
There you go. Let us know if you've purchased this and which games you enjoy, which ones are your favorites, which ones you think, what rules maybe they missed out on you think should have been included. You can let us know in those comments right down below. We'll be very excited to hear about them. Until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Roll for Crit. Get an inspiration token by supporting us on Patreon and liking and subscribing to this channel.
If you support us on Patreon, you'll get access to our audio expansion podcast. It's so good.